They say there are tons of wrestling podcasts out there, and you can definitely find one that fits you. Quite frankly, truer words have never been said. Be that as it may, please be aware that we here at Wrestle Addict Radio are about to embark on a conscious effort to open the creative envelope, so to speak, in order to entertain you in a more contemporary and much more educated manner. Even though we call ourselves a wrestling podcast network, the keyword in that phrase is wrestling. Wrestling extends far beyond the confines of WWE and AEW, to name a few. Wrestling takes many forms, from the intergender moments going on in Impact Wrestling, to the nostalgia going on in NWA, to the creativity and the hard-hitting explosiveness that occurs over in New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can clearly see that wrestling is a place for everyone. We at Wrestle Addict Radio feel that you, the wrestling podcast listener, are quite frankly sick and tired of getting your intelligence insulted. We also think that you're tired of a simplistic reasoning of WWE is way too mainstream and AEW is for the marks, just to name a few as an example. We know that you, the wrestling podcast listener, are tired of having your opinions made fun of and ridiculed on big social media platforms like Twitter and Reddit. Surely the idea, reasoning, and lack of logic behind statements such as, "This sucks and I don't like it because I said so," is definitely passé. Therefore, we here at Wrestle Addict Radio have embarked on a far more innovative and contemporary creative campaign that is far more invigorating and extemporaneous than ever before. You see, we are responsible wrestling podcasters that work hard to bring you the outrageous, wacky, and wonderful world known as wrestling. Wrestling is for everyone, no matter what race, creed, gender, sexuality, and anything else that you identify as. Wrestling, if done correctly, is a unifying bond where we can all celebrate and collectively suspend our disbelief, if only for a moment in time, for the sake of enjoying ourselves and the enjoyment of everyone around us. This does not mean that we will always agree. Quite frankly, disagreement is a positive thing. It gives us an avenue and an outlet to learn about someone else's perspective, which might in turn challenge us to rethink our own. As divisive as our community can be at times, we have the power to make a positive change, and we here at Wrestle Addict Radio look forward to becoming the leaders in that change. If this is your first time listening to us, then welcome to a positive wrestling community. If you have listened to us before, then thank you for your continued support. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is King Ricky Rose, your general manager of Wrestle Addict Radio, the cure for the common wrestling podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to change the landscape of podcasting as you know it in professional wrestling. This is the Game Changer Podcast. Featuring the greatest asset to come out of Canada, the legendary Mr. Fretz.
The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
I love myself. There's something so condescending to the champ to get out of my ring.
They think they got the answers. I change the questions. I did it all by my sweet little self. Two-time Slammy Award winner. I knew it. I'm a winner. I did it. Wow.
As well as featuring yours truly, the Game Changer, Nate the Effin' Great.
I've had it. It's time for you to start listening to somebody else, and that somebody else is going to be me, and it's going to be right now.
The dirty secret is you need this generation more than it needs you.
You're not going to come out here and talk about how it should have been you, it should have been me, it should have been you, it should have been you, it should have been you, it should have been you 8 years ago, and it was kind of, then it wasn't, and it's not going to be again, and it's not going to happen. Just get over it.
I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even in commentary. Nobody can touch me.
We change the game one day at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready, let's do this.
What's going on, guys? This is Zach, your host of the Young Lions Perspective Podcast, and you are listening to the Game Changer Podcast on Wrestle, Addict, Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of the week, so grab your popcorn, hold your loved ones close, grab a tissue box. This is going to be a rough one. Welcome to the Game Changer Podcast. I'm NateFNGreat, joined here by Mr. Fretz. And it has been probably one of the most emotional 24 hours that I can honestly remember, even just joining Wrestle Addict Radio. And first of all, I definitely do want to address this because this was something that broke the news earlier today that unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we lost another brother in the wrestling world, Shad Gaspard. He was out swimming with his family and unfortunately got caught in a riptide. Everybody made it out in his family life. Unfortunately, though, the riptide got him. After a few days of searching, he was found and unfortunately passed away. So we would just like to take this time to wish nothing but the best, our deepest condolences, as well as thoughts and prayers to the family of Shad Gaspard as they are going through what is a very troublesome time right now. And honestly, I've read the news reports about everything that has been told about his final hours, and honestly, this was one of those things that just... It's heartbreaking because this was a guy who literally gave his life to save his son's life. You cannot find a better human being than that.
Absolutely, man. There's no better way of putting it. Rest in peace. Prayers and condolences to Shad Gaspard's family and, those people who were his friends like JTG and MVP, Kofi, and all of them. And there's another thing on May 20th I'll get to in a second, but, there's one image I will never forget, and it's when Kofi won the WWE title at WrestleMania. There's it just shows MVP and Shad watching it and then just breaking down in tears, and it was emotional. It was a beautiful moment because Kofi was the first African American champion in WWE, and just seeing how much it meant to them was something powerful, and and I just say it's terrible. May 20th. Today is the 9th anniversary of Randy Savage's passing as well. Well, hence the Macho Man shirt I'm wearing right now, and that's one that hit hard for me too. And you get that, the Owen Hart special, and this one's gonna be raw, folks. No bones about it, but I am Mr. Fretz. You can call me the King of Farts, and you're not going to call me the Nugget, as I actually have a special story about that with someone that knew Owen Hart, but we can either get into that now or later. It's a really quick story about an indie show I was at.
You know what? Honestly, by all means, the floor is yours.
Okay, so in my hometown, Cannington, Ontario, it was actually 20 years ago this July. I'm going to be talking about it in that version of the 20 Bell Salute. There was one indie show that came to my hometown, only time it's ever been since. And it was a Toronto-based Apocalypse Wrestling Federation ran by Ron Hutchinson. And if that name sounds familiar, he was responsible for training Edge and Christian.
Okay.
So this show featured let's see, a very, very young Kizarni.
Interesting.
Or Sin Bodhi. He was known as Sin. And I'm trying to think of anyone else who was known. Oh, Gilbert was there. He was a referee. And the person I'm talking about is Owen Hart impersonator Jason Sensation.
Right.
Now, we all know a couple of years ago, Jason was unfortunately in the news for kind of being a dick on social media at a Toronto show, kind of the fake, I'm going to go do something. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
Okay, I don't know the details, so I won't get into it. It was like either a fake public suicide cry for help attempt. I don't know. He was a little later on. He got kind of messed up, but that's neither here nor there. I was spending the day with Jason Sensation at this while they were setting up the ring at this show. Canada Day 2000. I forget what the event. Anyways, and him and I were talking, and then the topic of Owen Hart comes up. And for some reason, I went home to grab my Owen Hart tribute magazine, and we were looking through it and telling stories. And there's some words he told me, and it was, it's been with me since. He's like, you know what? Owen Hart was a true angel. He was nothing but great to me. I'll never forget him. I am the real Nugget now. And it was kind of funny. And then, and after that, him and I shared a common interest and common love for Kurt Angle. This was right after Kurt won the King of the Ring.
Oh, geez.
And then he gets on the microphone, and we're all in the crowd. We're all like, Jason rules, it's true. And then he's like, it's true. So he nailed Kurt Angle then as well. I think we got him to do a bit of Owen Hart voice. I can't remember. Another thing I remember from that show is Gilbert getting in my face, and I'm just telling him, dude, you're in my arena. GTFO. I will put you through this table that's dividing us right now. But yeah, Jason, he was really cool. And yeah, he was like the special guest host of the show, like the guest GM. But he wasn't like Bob Barker making us do musical chairs. He just cut promos on us, and it was really fun.
It's really crazy because when we first talked about this episode devoted to Owen Hart, I honestly thought that, going to be talking about a wrestler who did indeed pave the way, and I would probably have, a deeper respect for him. In all honesty, after everything that's took place in the last week, I don't know if I've ever been emotionally invested in a wrestler since Eddie Guerrero, because everything that I've seen from Owen Hart, that whether it's your recommendation or things I've looked up on there, has just been absolutely amazing. And hearing the stories about all the things that he did, whether it was doing pranks, and trust me, we're going to talk about those stories in just a bit. It's during the show, so we're definitely going to have some Owen Hart entertainment during this deal. It's just absolutely amazing seeing the kind of impact that he had. And it wasn't, I think, until I reached the Owen part. Jeez Louise, can't even speak English. Let me try that again. Take two. Boop. During the Raw is Owen episode that I really felt the impact that Owen Hart would have, not only in WWE, but also in wrestling, period. Because so many people were talking very highly about him. And in all honesty, I don't know if there's even a bad story that I've heard about Owen Hart in his entire livelihood, about him not wanting to work with somebody, about how he wanted to bury somebody. No, he was very highly favored with so many people. And after the Dark Side of the Ring episode that we're definitely going to be talking about, you have a bit more of you have more respect for everything that he accomplished, and it hits you harder understanding the circumstances of what happened with him. But like I said, we're going to talk about that throughout the show. Honestly, we got to talk first about Owen Hart, the wrestler. This was a guy who, in all honesty, especially after listening to the Talk is Jericho with Martha Hart, in all honesty, it didn't seem like he was going to be a wrestler. He was very set on going to the University of Calgary, I believe it was, and he wanted to get his degree. He wanted to become a fireman. He wanted to have, kind of a own life outside of wrestling. And it wasn't until his family kind of pulled him into it that he started started getting more active into it. And I believe that the first few bits of him being active was that new Hart Foundation with him and brother-in-law Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Am I wrong? I'm actually consulting Fretz because he is the Owen Hart expert when it comes to his career. So if there's going to be a lot of questions I'm going to be asking, it's going to be towards Mr. Fretz. So what was that his first? No, wait, that's right. They were saying that his first matches were as the Blue Blazer.
That's right. About 1988-89, Owen Hart debuted in the WWE as the Masked Blue Blazer. But before that, I'm looking up his career in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I have to hunt down this match because he wrestled Keishi Yamada. And I'm sorry I butchered that name, but if that name sounds familiar to anyone, that is Jushin Thunder Liger.
Are you serious?
Owen Hart and Liger in 1987. I am hunting this down. Maybe as soon as I'm done here. And Owen Hart, he defeated Hiroshi Hayes for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. It was funny. I was thinking about playing some Fire Pro Wrestling tonight, and I downloaded one of the 175 wrestlers I've downloaded is Owen Hart.
Wow.
And they're in my Hart Foundation stable with almost every Hart, including Teddy.
Really?
But yeah, it's a heck of a thing. His New Japan run, I think he might have had a match with Pegasus Kid, who is Benoit. Just that in the 80s is, to quote OSW, Spooge McDuck. My goodness. So we have, he broke in as the Blue Blazer, but it was initially called Blue Angel. And, well, let's be glad that name didn't stick, because I think we all know what a Blue Angel is.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it would have went over like a fart in church. But so we see, Owen Hart was just defeating enhancement talent like Steve the Brooklyn Brawler and Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, Lombardi, Barry Horowitz. Yeah, Horowitz was a thing in the 80s, 10 years before he got his first win over Chris Candido. So Owen Hart actually made his pay-per-view debut not at WrestleMania 5, but at Survivor Series 1988, teaming with the Ultimate Warrior, Brutus Beefcake, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell of the Killer Bees, and Sam Houston to go up against the Honky Tonk Man, Greg Valentine, Outlaw Ron Bass, Bad News Brown, and Dangerous Danny Davis. Owen was eliminated by Greg Valentine, but Owen's team actually went on to win that match. Then, he had a great match with DiBiase on Saturday night's main event, and another really good match with Mr. Perfect at WrestleMania 5. And it was after that he left, and then he went to Stampede, Japan, and Mexico. He wrestled El Canek. He went to Germany, and he had a couple of matches in WCW in 1991.
Really?
Actually, one of them is on the Heart of Gold DVD, which if any of you are able to hunt this down, I highly recommend it. The documentary is really well done. In a way, it kind of parallels the Dark Side of the Ring, because Dark Side of the Ring, we didn't see anyone from outside of Martha, Oge, and Athena, which I think was absolutely the right move. Based on what they were talking about. But this one has Brett, Natty, Bruce. Well, we're going to talk about Bruce Hart here in a bit. That man is a treasure.
Yeah.
I'll get into it because personally, from listening to the Cultaholic Classic Raw review every week with Tom Campbell and Justin Henry, Bruce is a friggin' treat. But yes, long story short, He did start tagging with Jim Neidhart in late 91 as the New Foundation.
Yeah, I remember it had like these random like colored / checkered jackets, and I think even Owen had a brief run with Coco Beware, if I'm not mistaken. But
as high energy, which was after Jim Neidhart got canned.
That's right.
And Owen had like a 1 minute squash against Skinner at WrestleMania 8.
But, with all these, some people might call it, bumps in the road, he started to finally come out on his own one fateful night. That was, I'm going to get the date for this right, because I definitely do think that it deserves this recognition. That would be, there it is, November 24th, 1993, where he is teaming up with his family to take on Shawn Michaels and the Knights. And I want to say this right now, that I looked up the identities of the Knights on there, and I was kind of laughing because of hearing all the people that are in this. We have Barry Horowitz, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Jeff Gaylord. As soon as I heard Jeff Gaylord, I'm like, how can you have such an awesome name like that?
Oh, I got better. Because of my knowledge of the Cultaholic Classic Raw review, I'm putting them over all the time. Tom Campbell and Mafu. No, wait. Mafu does the SmackDown one with Tom Campbell, and SmackDown just did No Way Out. Highly recommend listening along. So, couple of things. One, it was supposed to be Jerry the King Lawler and his Knights. And do you know why that Jerry the King Lawler was not available that night?
I'm guessing because he got canned.
No. He was under investigation for an alleged sexual account with a 14-year-old girl.
Oh, boy. That moment you realize that Jerry Springer joke actually hit on too hard.
Yeah, that's why there's some random thing where when this one person tries to get a jab at Lawler or saying like, "Oh yeah, stay away from the playgrounds" or something like that. Yeah, charges were dropped. It was something to do with charges of statutory and sodomy and some weird. Yeah, sorry.
One of the few times I've literally done the role and like, yeah, we gotta get off the subject. But yeah. So
I'm sorry. Sensitive. I'm sorry. Trigger warning. I should have said that first. Yeah, that acquitted. So, Shawn Michaels, cut that, and it's in. It was Shawn Michaels, and one of the Knights was supposed to be, allegedly, Terry Funk.
I honestly could not see that. I'm kind of glad that they didn't do that, because I cannot see Terry Funk in that kind of, Knights attire. So, although I will say this, that if Terry Funk was traded in for Jeff Gaylord, I'm going to say this right now, Terry Funk, you're a legend. Thank you so much, because you gave me a belly laugh when I saw this matchup, because I'm like, man, some of these guys look familiar. And then I look at the names here, I'm like, oh, okay, Barry Horowitz, Greg Valentine. Huh, interesting. And then as soon as I see Jeff Gaylord, I'm like, yep, I'm done.
I think Gilbert was the other one. And, okay, if you like Jeff Gaylord, I got a better enhancement talent name for you from the mid-'90s.
Oh, this ought to be good.
Ken Raper.
Oh, jeez.
I shit you not.
Oh, my God.
He is someone, I think, that the New Generation Project podcast, when they were a thing, they used to just go, something, is he Ken Raper? And just make fun of it.
Oh, jeez.
What? What is with these names?
I don't know. But one name that we would not forget at the end of this deal would be, actually two names we wouldn't forget, would be Owen Hart, as well as you mentioned, Bruce Hart, who, by God, I will agree with you. After this match was over, I was just like, wow, okay, first of all, Bruce Hart and Owen Hart look so vaguely similar. It's very uncanny. I dare anybody to look back at this and try and convince me otherwise. And B, yeah, he just hamming it up in a couple spots. I'm like, wow, Bruce. I mean, I know you're not going to get the rub anymore, but still, keep it down just a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, I kind of admire it in an endearing kind of way, because, I mean, Bruce is part of one of the most legendary families of all time, and it's just absolutely amazing. But this was where we started planting the seeds for Owen and Brett. But yeah, I will also say this, that it was very interesting to see like all these members of the Hart family there, as well as members of the Hart family in the audience, and then Stu Hart just literally sitting on probably like the steps in one corner. It was just one of those things where it's like, wow, they really went all out for this deal. This matchup better deliver. And it did. It did. We got the first interaction between Shawn and Brett, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they had the Rockers had a title match against the Hart Foundation that was deemed controversial, and the title change was void.
But I think what I'm trying to get is, like, when he's now Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, not...
They had a match the year previous at Survivor Series 92.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Sorry.
I mean, no. It's fine. I think I do recall that. It just did not come to mind until now. But yeah, this was where we see the whole Owen is the entitled, quote unquote, spoiled brat, member of the Hart family. It gets built up to where we see what would soon be kind of a very interesting recycled story that a lot of people would do, including Undertaker and Kane. I mean, I'm just saying, just put the two together between Brett and Taker, and you'll kind of see the similarities. Where Brett's basically saying, like, I'm not fighting my brother. I'm not doing it. I'm not fighting my own flesh and blood. And then Owen's just like, oh, it's okay. I just overreacted. It's fine. They get a tag team title match against the Quebecers at the Royal Rumble. And unfortunately, the match is stopped because his knee is decided to, hey, just fall asleep on him. It gave out, I know. Owen Hart's pissed about this. And in all honesty, I said this to you. I said this was really unique for me because... yes, we heard like the screaming from Owen. We hear Brett trying to, make his case. But I feel like there was just one moment in that deal that really was so impactful. And it did not even need words. It was just one action. And that was Owen just kicking Bret Hart's leg underneath him. To where it's like, wow. He literally is the heel that WWE definitely needed. Oh my God. That was not cool, man.
No, that was the infamous. That's why I kicked your leg out of your leg. Owen Hart kind of stuttered through it, but he powered through it. But I want to talk about the Quebecers for a second. Because they were a very, very underrated team with a very underrated theme, which was just a different version of the Mounties theme. It's instead of... we're the Mount. It's like I'm the Mountie. It's like we're not the Mounties, and
we're not the
they're
Mounties.
Dressed like the Mountie. And I can just picture them just being absolutely liquored up, recording this, just drinking like a 2-4 of Molson's. And here's the reason why. One of the reasons I think why they were not the Mounties, because in Canada, you cannot portray a fictional Mountie. Well, at least in a wrestling ring, because we had, dramas up here like North of 60. Slack, ask your mom what that show is. But he couldn't, Jacques Rougeau couldn't portray the Mountie at indie shows in Canada, so he had to be Jacques Rougeau. So when the Quebecers, when the Mounties came to Canada, they had to be the Quebecers. Which was kind of ironic. But that match there, the Quebecers versus the Hart brothers, is an absolute classic because you have PCO and the Mountie. Yeah, the big guy's PCO. and the Mountie going up against Bret and Owen Hart. That's a masterclass in Canadian wrestling and the heritage of Canadian wrestling itself, because Rougeau, I think he might be a promoter now because he was in Dino Bravo's Dark Side of the Ring, which, yowza. And back onto Owen Hart, I like that they briefly reconciled, and this is them over Christmas being buddy-buddy. Helen was crying at Survivor Series. The rest of the family was really selling this, and we saw later on that we'll talk about at SummerSlam is you're starting to see a bit of a divide where some of the other Hart brothers, namely Bruce, are starting to kind of pick sides a little bit. But that was the moment that solidified him, because Survivor Series 93 was kind of a beta test. This was just to see how the fans would react. Fans booed Owen. I mean, they were hating it because Bret Hart's the top dog at the time.
Yeah, it's crazy because before the heel turn even happened, there was like equal amount of cheers for both Owen and Bret. So I was just kind of like, wow, he's really loved by the fans. And then, like you said, as soon as the whole him kicking Bret Hart's leg under his leg deal happened, he was the hated man in all of wrestling, and that was enough for Bret Hart to be like, okay, you know what? Let's go, bro. Let's go. And we get that classic matchup at WrestleMania, the opening contest of WrestleMania 10, Owen Hart and Bret Hart. In all honesty, it is more than likely in everybody's top 10, if not 5, of favorite WrestleMania matches. And it's honestly one of the flag bearers to, hey, if you're not on this level of opening WrestleMania, then you're going to have a tough time making it in this business. Bret and Owen tore the house down. The technical style, the brotherly feud between the two of them, it just was absolutely amazing. The storytelling in the ring was just great. It's just hard to really replicate into words how masterful this was. And the finish was, in all honesty, a grand shocker because everybody saw Bret Hart. He's been doing the victory roll quite a few times. This time around, Owen is just like, no, I'm just not going down, bud. I'm just gonna basically sit on you. 1, 2, 3. No ropes, no tights, nothing. Beats Bret Hart clean in the opening match. And I still remember him having that post-match interview deal where he's like, I did it. I beat my brother. Now I am the best there is, the best there was, and I will be the best there ever will be. Just healing it up. It's absolutely great. I love this matchup. Bret and Owen at WrestleMania 10, just mwah, absolutely delicious.
It's not only is it in like my top 5 WrestleMania matches, it's in like my top 3 all matches of all time.
Wow.
And everything about this was perfect. Up to the introduction, I mean, you had Bill Dunn doing the intros, and it's funny because you started off to get the crowd to be like, on the edge of their seat, like, from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, silence,
Oh my gosh.
That intro was even that part of the match was amazing, and this little blurb here I'm about to say was used in OSW Review's WrestleMania 10 video on YouTube now. Check it out, and it had this one part where Owen whipped Bret down to the ground and kind of like face washed him and pulled his hair, and Bret's like, Owen was a great wrestler, but he was also such a great chicken shit cheater. Because he's like, he whips him down, he face washes him, he pulls his hair, and Bret's down there, just like looking up at him and pointing, like, you little shit. Watch that part, because that was just awesome. I don't know if it was on the Heart of Gold documentary, but
it should be. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So, all right. I want to break out the first Owen prankster story, and it does involve Bret Hart because this was just absolutely great. So, Owen and Bret, they are having a match together, and it's a great classic. It's just absolutely. But there's a point where Owen Hart is out of the ring, and he basically takes his hand. He's going underneath the ring, kind of feeling around, and he's going back into the ring. And there's like so many moments where he is just face washing Bret Hart. He is just literally just taking his hand they put under the ring. He's just clamoring it all. Match ends, Owen Hart is just bolting out of there. Reason why was because Owen decided in the matchup to dip his hands in sardines and put it all over Bret Hart's face. And he knew that when Bret Hart was going to be done, that he was going to literally just go after him and probably beat the ever-living piss out of him. So Owen was just like, you know what? I'm bolting. He, from what I heard, he left just super fast. He was literally like, yep, nope, not happening. He is one of those guys who knows how to deliver pranks, and I'll tell you this right now, there's another story later on that I'll mention that he definitely has quite a bit of karma. But that was just one where I thought, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about Owen Hart, the prankster, because by God, just having that deal where literally Bret's just probably thinking like, what the hell is that smell? And then he's just getting his face washed by Owen. He's like, dude, what do you have in your hand? Is that like shit or something? Just to find out, oh, it's just dead fish, whatever.
I got one that involves Bret too.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, this one involves Bret, but there's one I have to remember for later. So we've talked about this one before, I think, and it was, I think it might have been this WrestleMania or another WrestleMania. All the Hart family are staying at the hotel. Stu is staying with Bret, and Owen's there. So Owen calls up Stu's hotel room, and he pretends that he's Reg Park, who is an old friend of Stu's. It's like, hey, Stu, you want to try me? You want to fight me? You come to the lobby. And he's just like, hey, Rich, if you want to try me, why don't you try me? And then finally he just realizes, it's like, he hangs up the phone, slam. He goes to Bret, son of a bitch, he got me. Owen. he pretends to be Reg Park, and then the wheels start turning in Stu's head. Well, here's the thing. Owen, when Owen was born, Stu was 50. So this would have been Stu. Stu was probably fairly old at this point in time. So he's just like, wait a minute, why would Reg Park be in New York City in a hotel room? It doesn't make any sense. Ah, fucking Owen. Son of a bitch.
Oh my God. Oh man, and trust me guys, like I said, we got more Owen stories to tell. In all honesty, I went through an entire list of 15 Owen stories, and I'm trying to reduce it down to 5, but it's going to be tough. I will say this, that both mine and Fretz's stories were on that list, so we still got quite a ways to go. But getting back to Owen Hart, during this deal, after he beats Bret goes on to main event WrestleMania, he defeats Yokozuna, and everybody talks about this ending because it's so absolutely just beautiful. Is that, there's people in the ring, all the baby faces, they're celebrating with Bret. Yeah, he's the new champion. And in the runway, you just see Owen looking on. And it's one of those things where it's like, but I beat him the other night. Where's my celebration? It's just one of those things where, again, it's just a tangled webbly weave that just keeps weaving. And the story just keeps progressing to something better. And Owen, in his mind, realizes, okay, I need to step up my game. I need to do something that will give me the recognition. What does he do? 1994, King of the Ring. He throws his name into it, and by God, does he have some very good matches. One of which you mentioned to me was against a very young Sean Waltman, at the time known as 1-2-3 Kid. It is 4 minutes long, and in that 4 minutes is magic. It's absolutely amazing. It's one of those things where it's like, why can't all squash matches be as entertaining, as well done as this? These guys just put on a nice barn burner. This was like the semifinal matchup. So again, it was one of those things where you're feeling the prestige of the King of the Ring, but you're also seeing two guys of very small size just absolutely tearing it apart. Again, for 4 minutes. And I'm just like, what? Okay. This is awesome. Owen would go on to win the King of the Ring, last defeating Reza Ramon, becoming the King of Harts, and he and Bret would clash at SummerSlam for the WWE Championship inside of a steel cage. Oh My goodness. This was the epitome of brutality between brothers. No blood is shed in this. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's one of those things, if you're expecting a bloodbath, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But the physicality tells the entire story between these guys. It shows the heat. It shows the burning just anger between these two. It's so personal. These guys are throwing each other in cages. They're beating each other senseless. And the finish, in all honesty, is, I think, one of my favorite finishes to a cage match, because Bret and Owen are fighting on the outside of the cage. They're just beating each other down. Bret gets like one good shot into him. Owen seems like he's about to fall, but his legs get caught in the cage. He's literally just dangling upside down with his hands hitting the floor. Bret hops down and retains the championship. It's one of those things where it's like, wow, he kind of outsmarted his brother that way. That was really good. So that was, in all honesty, one of the better ones. Is it better than the WrestleMania 10 one? It's hard to defeat the original, I think. I think that the original WrestleMania 10 was the better contest, but still, I think if there's a hard second between these two, it definitely is that cage match.
It is, and there's another Hart family member that plays a really important role in this, and this dates back to King of the Ring 94. And that, of course, is Bret Hart's former tag team partner and brother-in-law, Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
That's right.
Who he resurfaced in 94. And, okay, here's the thing. Anvil helped Owen win King of the Ring. He attacked Razor on the outside, threw him back in the ring, allowing Owen to hit the top rope elbow for the win. Earlier in the night, Bret Hart had a title versus title match against Intercontinental Champion Diesel. You know, winner take all, basically. So Jim Neidhart was in Bret's corner, in air quotes, as I say on an audio podcast. And Anvil attacks Bret. And Bret wins by disqualification. So he still walks out as WWE champion, does not become a 3-time Intercontinental champion. So that was just a neat little knot in the storyline. And another person that got involved in the family feud here at SummerSlam 94 was the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, whom I think just last, speaking of shitty week, shitty time, last week I think was 18 years since he left. May's a rough month. So there's one moment in this match I completely forgot about until Cultaholic brought it up on their watch-along, and it was Bulldog and Diana were sitting in the front row. 2 rows back, behind Bruce Hart. Okay, Bruce Hart was trying to get his licks in this too. But after the match, after everything, they're all standing and getting ready for their spot or getting ready for their feud. Jim Neidhart bolts from behind, and not only does he 360 Davey Boy over the barricade, he takes out Diana, because Bulldog had his arm around Diana, and they both 360 over the barricade. And Diana almost gets crushed. It was the most unintentionally hilarious but horrifying fan bump I've ever seen. And speaking on Bruce here, did you know that I think Vince or whoever, someone originally wanted Bret to feud with Bruce?
That's right. I remember that.
And then Bret's like, you know what? Bruce he's had his time. I think he was wrapping up his career. He was getting to retire. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to do the family feud thing, but only if I can do it with Owen. Because, he was floundering. He was doing curtain jerker matches against, Barry Horowitz. And Bret's like, he's better than this. And that quick-ass match that Owen Hart had with 1-2-3 Kid proves it. I mean, in that 4 minutes, we saw, Owen Hart break out a massive powerbomb, when Kid went for some kind of cannonball move, and Owen just catches him with a bomb.
Oh gosh,
Kid breaks out the Northern Lights suplex with the bridge and got the visual win, but Owen Hart had his foot on the rope. Oh, and need we mention that Kid was attacked by Jeff Jarrett after being upset in the first round match by Kid. He ate like 5 pile drivers, and Kid almost didn't make it out, so he groggily comes to the ring, and Owen Hart just comes in with the baseball slide drop kick out of nowhere. Owen breaks out a friggin' German suplex, and my God, just that match. More of that, please. And I gotta say one more. I'm sorry I have to say one more thing, but after SummerSlam, speaking of visual wins, there was a match where Owen Hart won the WWE title, but it was later reversed. It was one of those phantom title changes. It's like he gets it, he's celebrating with the title and all that, but then the video cuts off. But it was Jack Tunney who was like, furthermore, Owen Hart is not declared the WWF champion. Still, the champion is Bret Hart. Stricken from the records, tragically.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because after that feud with Bret, he definitely kind of goes on a bit of like an up and down sort of deal. Because, I mean, first of all, let's talk about the fact that he is a decorated tag team competitor. So much so that he's won at least 3 titles with 3 different partners. Yokozuna, Jeff Jarrett, as well as the British Bulldog. So he definitely is one of the reliable people when it comes to that. I mean, still, that visual, though, of Yokozuna and Owen Hart is just mind-boggling to me. But also, it does kind of address the deal where some people might be saying, well, why is Jim Cornette involved in this? Because Jim Cornette was Owen Hart's manager for a while. And in all honesty, he probably made... he probably gave Owen Hart pointers on, like, here's how to use something, like, more annoying, where people can just... where you can just give him a lot of shit. And, in all honesty, I think it was kind of after that you definitely did see a lot of Owen Hart's personality, his character kind of coming out. So much so that it did earn him not 1, but 2 Slammies, which in all honesty is still one of the greatest things I've seen in the deal. Because you kind of hear at the beginning of our show, we have like a lot of people like doing like one-liners and stuff like that. That scene, with that whole deal with Owen Hart being like, I knew it, I'm a winner, woo! Is so absolutely great. If you get a chance, it's on YouTube. It's funny. He basically just takes the card from somebody, and he just nonchalantly puts it in his jacket, and he's just like, I knew it! I did it again! Hey, Bulldog, you may have 2 titles, but you don't have 2 Slammies. It's just one of those things. It's great. It's just absolutely great.
So good.
I'm going to say this, Fretz. I did listen to your podcast where you were mentioning if Owen Hart, was still with us. Honestly, if Owen and Bret were in the same class, you cannot tell me that Owen Hart would not just grab Bret Hart's plaque and just be like, I knew it. I did it. 2-time Hall of Famer, baby. Oh my gosh!
Oh, man, my goodness, yeah.
And then Ric Flair would just be like, "Well, I was a 2-time winner, but Owen Hart kind of beat me to it." It's like, yes, he did, and the best possible way. Oh my god!
Oh, that's great. And Ric Flair would have that look on his face, like when Jay Lethal started cutting promos as Ric Flair, like dead on too. And Flair he's looking like, you son of a bitch, but he's also like, holy shit, he nailed me. Owens, his rest of '94, he played a role in Bret Hart losing the WWF title.
That is true.
To Bob Backlund.
Of all people, freaking Bob Backlund.
If I may. So I'm going to set the stage for you. So Bob Backlund was the hero of the 70s. He was the one after San Martino left and lost the title. I think San Martino, his 8-year reign ended in like a 73-second match against Ivan Koloff.
Yes.
I think. I might be getting my stories mixed up. But well after that, I think Backlund won the title in like 1977 or 8 or 9, somewhere in there. Yeah. But he was the hero. He was Hogan before Hogan, the ultimate babyface, the new Bruno. And then, of course, he lost the title to the Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik loses to Hulk Hogan, and Hulkamania is born.
And blah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Wrap back in. And he came back in 94.
Yes.
No, he came back in 93. And then his shtick was getting old, and then he brought in his former manager, Arnold Scotland, to like a King's Court, blamed him for losing, locked him in the chicken wing, became a full-blown psychotic heel. Feuded with Brett, went into a submission match, and it was like a throw-in-the-towel kind of deal. And you had Owen in Backlund's corner, and Martha and Stu Hart, no, Helen and Stu Hart, I'm sorry, in Brett's corner. And then the chicken wing was locked in for an eternity. And Owen is crying, like, please, Mom, throw in the towel. Look at Brett's suffering. And Helen throws in the towel, and Owen just goes, yes! Shit match, but great finish.
Oh my gosh. That match was made better by Owen Hart. He's like the Tim Curry of most wrestling matches prior to that time. It's like,
God.
For every 1-star match he's in, he's that reason that it got the 1 star.
Don Carnage.
Oh my gosh. Don Carn Owen. No,
Owen Hart as Don Carnage.
Oh my
if we had a Photoshop editor like Cultaholics, John Eiley.
Oh my gosh, that would be hilarious. That would be amazing. So yeah, I mentioned the fact that he was a tag team competitor for a while. He won the Intercontinental title a few times, and he also got
way after that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just kind of like fast track. I'm trying to get to like the nitty gritty stuff like that. He would also go on to be featured against matches with some new rising talent. Some people might remember Adam Copeland, a.k.a. Edge. They actually had a match on... It was on pay-per-view, actually, that they had this match. Yeah, it was. It was the...
Breakdown in Hamilton, Ontario.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
And Owen Hart got cheered so hard in that match, despite the fact he was... Okay, this is Canada. This is a Canada talk. Slack, this is for you. Owen Hart was wearing a Toronto Argonauts jersey in Hamilton. However, the Hamilton Tiger Cats are the main rival of the Argos. Okay. This is Canadian Football League, Grey Cup. So, it was kind of weird, but also Owen Hart was so beloved up here that we didn't care.
And I will tell you this also does involve another Owen Hart story that does feature Edge. So, okay. Let me paint you guys a picture that, of course, everybody knows that, if you get hit with like a foreign object, you kind of sell it like it's just absolutely getting hit with like a baseball bat or something like that. So, during, I think it might have been during this matchup or it might have been a match later on. Owen Hart.
House show.
It was a house show. Okay, this makes it even better. So, during this matchup, Owen Hart hits Edge with a foreign object, and Edge, of course, sells it like, oh gosh, I got beat up like no tomorrow. It's later revealed that the foreign object that Owen Hart hit Edge with was a napkin. So Edge sold for a piece of paper. Which, in honesty, is one of the greatest things I heard. I looked at this and I thought to myself, what the absolute hell is going on here? And also, these Canadians, they know how to make things just amazing. Even the simplest form, like a napkin. Chris Jericho got a piece of paper over, so Owen Hart can get a piece of diningware over, I guess. Oh my gosh, that was just great. He also had feuded with guys like The Rock, Triple H. He had a couple matches with the one and only Shawn Michaels, and he really started getting a bit of a resurgence when he started feuding with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And also during this time, he reconciled with his brother to create the New Heart Foundation with him, Owen, Davey Boy Smith, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and Brian Pillman. It was honestly one of the most unique, but also one of the greatest heel factions ever. And I defy you to tell me otherwise. It was also during this time that we find out that Mr. British Bulldog had won a new championship known as the European Championship, which in all honesty, I had no idea this was actually a thing. That title was created before WrestleMania 13. I actually did not know that. It was about almost 5-6 weeks before the actual.
Yes. It was a tournament that took place, ironically enough, in Europe. Davey and Owen were the finalists.
Oh my God, that match!
This was. Yeah, there is some backstory to this. It involves Bulldog. Like there's a story about when they returned to the UK later this year, which was going to be British Bulldog's kind of glorious homecoming, one night only. It wound up being the biggest nightmare because at the last second, Shawn Michaels was booked to beat Bulldog for the Euro title. But this match, Davey and Owen in Germany, wow. Just wow. And just around this match, there was some cracks starting to form in Davey and Owen, in formerly Camp Cornette. At this point, Cornette wasn't in the picture. And until Brett got involved, he's like, no, listen, you guys, stop fighting, and this is exactly what the fans want us to do. And then he goes to, Owen sold this perfectly, and this was after 4 years feuding on and off. He goes like, Owen, I love you. And then Owen just instantly starts breaking down. And then after the reconciliation, they're in the ring, they're hugging, and Owen is still sobbing, and he's like rubbing the backs of Brett's and Bulldog's head, and like Brett just had that that Jim Halpert look on his face with the camera. Owen just sells everything perfectly. And before it leaves my brain, can I give you one prank story?
By all means, I have another one here that involves Owen and Bulldog, but let's hear yours first. It might even be the same one, probably.
No, it's not, because when you talk Owen and Bulldog, I'm just like, oh wait, it's that one. No, this one. So every time WWE came around Kansas City, Missouri, they would always go to Harley Race's farm for dinner. Harley Race would cook. Wait, did you have this one too?
No, I'm giving you a thumbs up because I've read this story and I love it.
Okay. And it has the best payoff ever. So they all go to Harley Race's house for dinner, and Harley always made his famous chili. Kevin's famous chili, but with Harley Race. And Owen Hart would take an entire bottle of hot sauce. I'm not talking Frank's Red Hot sauce. That shit's weak. I'm not talking Sriracha hot sauce. That shit's weak. It was probably like colon blaster, ass blaster hot sauce. Pours the whole thing in there. And everyone just toughened through it because they're trying not to sell for Harley or not offend him. Then at the show, a little while later, or maybe a couple of weeks later, Harley Race runs into Owen Hart again. And he shakes his hand. And in his other hand, he gets a taser. And just bolts Owen Hart. Okay, you don't fuck with the old timers, man. Like Harley Race, God rest his soul. He was a guy you did not mess with. He learned the hard way. And I'm going to tell you off air about some of my pranks that backfired. Not quite like that, but you'll find out.
Oh my gosh. That is a great story. It's just absolutely wonderful. And like you said, you don't mess with the old timers. You just don't do that. But at the same time, it's a perfect recipe of Owen Hart getting his just desserts for his prankster deals. Oh my gosh, it's just great. All right, so before we go to a quick commercial break, I'll tell you the Owen Hart British Bulldog story. And honestly, guys, I'm going to read it from this excerpt from the site that I was looking at, because in all honesty, I don't think I can give it justice. So, all right. At the end of a long tour, the Harts were set, Owen and Brett, were set to go back home to Calgary from Niagara Falls. While it appeared Brett and Owen were going to have to catch a later flight, Davey Boy was gritting because he was leaving the show early and was going to catch the last flight that night to Calgary. Beautiful start. Owen and Brett were later on the card, so thought they would likely miss the flight, and Bulldog kept rubbing it in. It gets better. Owen and Brett rushed to the airport after the show, trying to make the 1 a.m. flight. Lucky for the Hart brothers, the airport clerk was a huge wrestling fan and gave them first-class tickets in exchange for some pictures and autographs, because why not? She also made it easy for the Harts to zip through security. Owen and Brett found themselves on an empty plane, alone in first class, with Bulldog way back in coach. Owen then went back and offered a seat in first class to Davey. After a while, Brett gave the signal to the steward to send Davey back to coach. When the steward ordered Davey back, Owen cracked and Davey blew the steward off. The steward kept pushing it, and Davey soon realized that he was being pranked. Finally, Davey snapped, yelling, "F you, and F you" to Brett, Owen, and the steward. Oh my gosh. Oh man, that was just absolutely great. Man, British Bulldog, he was definitely one of those guys that you just did not want to piss off. But that was just awesome. The fact that
he's bizarre.
It's one of those few times where you see Brett and Owen collabing on a prank, and it's just absolutely wonderful. It's just absolutely great. All right, guys, so we're going to take a little quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue about the game changer that is Owen Hart.
What's up, folks? This is Mr. Fretz from the Game Changer Podcast, here to tell you about my Patreon show, The 20 Bell Salute, where I go back 20 years ago each month in wrestling and pop culture. What movies were out, what video games we were playing, what music we were downloading on Napster, and what wrestling pay-per-views took place that month in WWE, and what other promotions happen to still exist at this time. So join me in my Y2K compliant DeLorean as I go 20 years into the past on the Wrestle Addict Radio Patreon. Join us for only $5 a month.
Hey guys, this is Nate the Effing Great. Hey, have you ever wanted to be a champion but can't seem to really find the money and the time to get a championship belt? Well, you know who's a really good friend of mine? AJ from AJsBelts.com. These guys have a large assortment of championship belts, from classic belts to the modern day belts to championship belts that you would not even believe. And guys, like I said, they work with you very well. With an awesome layaway program, there is no way that you can beat these guys' prices as well as these guys' deals, especially when you can give them a little bit of money every now and then until you can get that championship gold. Coming from a guy who's a champion and a game changer, I'm indeed Nate the Effing Great. I'm representing AJsBelts.com, proud friends of the Game Changer Podcast.
What's going on, everyone? This is the Kate Murphy of Kings of the Rings podcast, and you're listening to the Game Changer podcast only on Wrestle Addict Radio.
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change. Come and take your best shot. I tried to be a nice guy. I tried to play by the rules. You turned your backs on me.
You know, it might just be me, but for some reason, I'm listening to that theme song, and I almost hear the classic Batman theme song. involved in there. I hear that da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. So that's just me. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Game Changer Podcast. I'm NateFNGreat. Giving me the "what the hell are you talking about" look is Mr. Fretz. We are, of course, talking about Owen Hart. And, guys, we are fast-forwarding now to 97, to one of the biggest main events ever. And it is one of the most talked about main events, especially in, no pun intended, in your house history. That being the Canadian Stampede match, featuring a very unique teaming up of, I believe it's Austin, Goldust. You might need to help me out with this one because I'm kind of drawing a blank with a couple of them.
Yes, I'll get you from here, brother. We had Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ken Shamrock, Goldust, and the Road Warriors going up against Bret Hart, Jim Neidhart, Owen Neidhart, the British Bulldog, and Brian Pillman. In Calgary, I think this was actually during the Calgary Stampede. It's a annual event up here. Unfortunately, I don't think is taking place this year. Fuck you, coronavirus. There's the E for explicit.
It's Corona. It's Corona, man.
It's Steve Carino.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's Steve. I'm sorry, Steve. Yeah, like he knows who I am. or Stevie Richards, whatever.
Don't piss off the Richards, man.
Don't piss me off.
I'll show you. You'll see.
You'll see. Good job. So, I'll just say this: the undercard of this pay-per-view was kind of crap, except for the great Sasuke versus Taka Michinoku. Yes, that happened on WWE soil. So this was something that was brought up in the Heart of Gold DVD. Natalia was narrating this. She was there. She was like a teenager at the time. Funnily enough, I think she was actually dating or just starting to date TJ Tyson Kidd. Yeah, they've known each other forever because, well, the dungeon, and she's the Anvil's girl. They were all like the non-Calgarians, I think, were deemed honorary Calgarians. And one by one, after the intros, like Stone Cold Steve Austin got booed, and he was the most over guy in the business at this point in time. When you come to Canada, it's just when you're in our house, we're gonna go for our boys over you. The house show I was at later in the year, I'll get to there because Owen Hart was there later. They all got the pop. You had Jim Neidhart came to the ring to, funnily enough, Alundra Blaze's old theme. Brian Pillman got a massive ovation because not only is he a Stampede alum, he is also a Calgary Stampeder CFL alum, Canadian Football League. British Bulldog, I think, got made close to the second biggest pop of the night other than Owen and Bret, but it's like one by one, each guy, and everyone's just screaming. And this was a very special night to Natalia because after the match, after the Harts won, Owen Hart rolled up Austin for the win. Everyone's chanting Owen, Owen, and then all the Harts. Everyone comes in the ring. This is the extended Hart family. All of the kids, all of the grandkids and nieces and nephews and cousins. And like Teddy Hart was there. Like Tyson was there. And even though he wasn't a Hart, he was dating one. And that's where Natalia just kind of broke down and said that was the last time that entire family was all in one place. Because, 2 months after this, we lost Pillman. I think Helen wasn't long for this world after that, maybe another couple of years. Stu passed away in 2003. Like, it was actually discussed in, was it Ruthless Pod this week? They were talking about No Mercy, and Benoit paid tribute to Stu in that match. Right. And it got real heavy, but it was such a joyous time for not only Calgary, but I think for Canada in general. But here's me. At the time, I'm 13. I'm a mark, and I'm booing who the TV is telling me to boo. So I wasn't necessarily very favorable of the Harts until right before Montreal. And retroactively, if I can go back and change that, I'd be like, no, James, they're Canadians. You should be going for your Canadians. But I was also like, hey, why can't we get along with America? You guys are cool. This is my favorite In Your House match ever. In Your House doesn't have, I'll say, until 98, 99, when they still used In Your House, this is my favorite one, just because of the atmosphere. They were going nuts for their home. The heroes. As my hat falls off my couch.
I saw that. It was just great.
I can't speak any more to this. This was glorious.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it would only get a little tougher for these guys because months later, we would review Survivor Series 97. What more can we say about that other than Montreal's Screwjob? And Owen Hart was kind of locked in. It kind of stunk for him. And the thing was that now we're going to start talking a bit about the combination, kind of combining some things from Dark Side of the Ring as well as the Talk is Jericho podcast. Dark Side of the Ring kind of mentioned the fact that after Brett left, Owen was kind of it was kind of like a duck in water because they were starting to do a lot more of these character types. They were more focused on the entertainment value, and they for some reason just did not see that in Owen, which in all honesty I think is malarkey because he could do both. He could be a great character and he could be a great wrestler. But I think this was starting to come to the point where it's like, we're not going to be focused on wrestling. Ooh, wrestling, that's a dirty word. We need to focus more on the entertainment value. I mean, obviously, it won't be until 2002 that they decide to be called World Wrestling Entertainment. But it was just one of those things where they decided, we want to focus more on the characters. We want to focus more on that. In all honesty, if they would have put the belt on Owen during these times, that would have been absolutely fantastic. In all honesty, why they didn't rekindle the feud between Austin and Hart? I mean, can you imagine the possibility? This is just a fantasy book in here that Vince doesn't recruit Kane and Undertaker. He recruits Owen Hart. It's one of those things where it's like, has hell frozen over because of what happened at Survivor Series? And for Owen, it's one of those things where he could play it off and he could be that corporate guy that literally would be the most hated person. He would be the self-entitled guy. He played that character before, and he would just flourish in that. It would have been absolutely astonishing to see that. But no, we just got him kind of trying to quote-unquote, I guess, find himself and stuff like that, and then we got him back as the Blue Blazer. And in all honesty, Owen Hart did his best to really try to, make that character stick. I mean, even though it was kind of like his version of Hulk Hogan, take your vitamins, say your prayers, and drink your milk.
Your milk.
It just...
it's so good.
It was absolutely just... It was great. And unfortunately, guys, we fast forward to May 23rd, 1999. In all honesty, the toughest thing to get through. Because Owen Hart, as the Blue Blazer, was scheduled to face the Godfather for the Intercontinental title. And for some reason, WWE have had this fascination for him to come down as a superhero. He's supposed to come down. He's going to be flying down from the ring, stuff like that. During this deal, unfortunately, something went wrong. One of the harness lines malfunctioned, and he fell 78 plus feet into the ring, and he unfortunately did not make it. This was where I really started just feeling the emotions come in during the Dark Side of the Ring, because as soon as they started talking about this, they started talking about everything that was going on behind the scenes, where referee, I believe it was Jack, I think it was Jack Doan, if I'm not mistaken. I literally was like, holy crap.
Corderis.
Oh, thank you. Jimmy Corderis. I saw him and I'm just like, oh my gosh, Jimmy, what's up, dude? And, he talks about what it was, what happened for him. And basically he felt like something kind of brushed his shoulder. He saw the ropes kind of shaking. He's like, what was that? Turns around, he sees Owen. And he's calling people to the back. Owen gets stretchered out. And basically they're trying to figure out, what's going on with them, what happened with them. And I remember this deal from... This was something that really pissed me off. And it really just... It was horrible. Because Jim Ross got the word about Owen's passing. And Kevin Dunn says, he's passed away. We're coming back in 5, 4, 3. And JR and King, the reactions that they have are just kind of disbelief as well as utter sadness hearing what happened with Owen. And then we get into the Martha Hart deal. Oh my gosh, this was rough for me because I remember her pick up the phone and it's like, and it's Vince McMahon, and she's like, oh, Owen, you're just being silly. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, no, seriously, it's Vince. And she's like, okay, Owen, the joke's over. It's like, no, this is seriously Vince McMahon. He explains the situation, and she is in just utter shock. She doesn't know what's going on. And it's not until about a couple hours later, doctor calls up, and he is basically saying that, I'm sorry, I did everything that I could, and I couldn't save him. And I just remember seeing that visual that they had of Martha just, dropping to her knees and just absolutely just losing it. She's just screaming, no, no, no. And then when she has to tell the kids what happened, that made it even harder. And seeing that visual of them in bed together, just thinking just kind of almost thinking, there's no way that this is real. There's no way that this is happening. And it was very hard. That was the moment that broke me in that entire series, was just hearing how she had to break it to the kids, and how you hear Oj and Athena and everything that they've had. And Oj, he and his father had just a very special relationship. I mean, talks about he loves model trains, and anytime that he got trains, he loved spending it with his dad. And Owen was just a family man who honestly said, wrestling's number 2, family is first. And he just absolutely loved his family. This was just, like I said, this was the part that just broke me immensely. And I've already talked about the Raw is Owen deal, so I don't need to go any deeper than that. But I know, Fretz, that you gave me the one sign. So by all means, what were you going to say?
Oh, I didn't. I was just actually clearing my eyes too. But no, well, Over the Edge. I was watching it live at my friend's house. This was a Dave's Basement pay-per-view for those who have been with me for some time now. But my buddy Dave, we ordered this because this was a month before I was going to go have my surgery on my back. So we're like, oh yeah, let's watch Over the Edge. This looks like a fun pay-per-view. And we saw the Owen Hart, have vitamins and drink your milk. And we were making fun of it. We were rooting for The Godfather because I was 15. How could I not root for a guy that brings tits to the ring? And I felt, and then when they were like, oh, something went wrong, we're just like, okay. Later on, when Jim Ross announced it, I got sad, and my one friend was like, why are you sad, man? You spent years booing him. I'm like, well, if I was booing him, Owen Hart did his fucking job. I'll say that. Because if you're playing a character, he's supposed to be playing a character on TV that you don't like. And I felt guilt about that stuff for a while. And we were like, we were joking like, oh, he's cutting the he's talking like he's Hogan and something, and then it got real fast, and we're just like, shit. That 10 seconds, like that Kevin Dunn thing. Fuck Kevin Dunn. I mean, after watching this, I have a couple of new things. They should have stopped the show. And I'm fine with Owen Hart not being in the Hall of Fame because even like Oj and Athena, they're against it. Oh, I have to say, Oj is the spitting image of his dad. Just looks exactly like Owen. And there's one GIF that was going around today. I never really noticed because I think I've only watched this pay-per-view maybe 3 times. It's not. It's the undercard. The rest of the pay-per-view itself is shit, anyways. But that's the reason why I'm not revisiting it. It had the main event, Steve Austin and the Undertaker, and there's this GIF going around of Taker, and he just goes. He just looks up and goes like, and he looks like he was just about to crack, but then he had to lock up with Steve. The show must go on. That ring's a fucking crime scene. His blood was still on that. I came out of this a little bit more pissed off, and I was watching John Ritland, my friend here. He does his wrestling reviews. I watched his review of it. Okay, when Corny cracked, and when I watched John crack, that got me. And I said before, I'm not a crier. Like, not even at my grandparents' funerals. Sure, I was sad. I shed a tear, but I don't, physically cry. I don't know why. Just fucking that. And the bit where he Oj at the airport, I'm not going to describe it just because we'll both start, but God. Yeah. The whole that was the heaviest dark side episode, and mind you, that was I was mad at the end. I was mad at the end of Benoit's. I was mad at the end of Snuka's, and gosh, man,
this was kind of like next level because of everything that happened. We see the Owen Hart's funeral deal, and I will say this was another one that really got me, where Martha was talking about going into the room where Owen was, where he was in the casket, and she, as soon as the door was completely open, she started breaking down. She was just trying to leave, and Brett just has her in just this bear hug, and she mentioned that they were doing this kind of tiptoe kind of dance towards the casket, and when she finally saw him, I don't want to say it was kind of a sense of relief or something like that, but it was one of those things where she started feeling better because of how he was presented. I believe they were saying she made some comment about his hair, if I'm not mistaken, but it was one of those things where it somehow, helped her get through this. And it was one of those things where you see the procession of people that went to Owen's funeral and hearing all the stories that happened with Owen. People like Mark Henry and Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, Shane McMahon, Deborah, so many people that that you may have remembered and some you may not have remembered that just were telling so many wonderful things about Owen. And this goes back to what I said before. I don't think I've ever heard a single negative thing about Owen. He was honestly the most professional person as well as the most personal person that you will ever meet. There were so many stories that Martha told on Talk is Jericho about the kind of person Owen Hart was. He could be a prankster, but he could also be just this guy who has the biggest heart of gold, major pun intended. But knowing that, so many people were affected by him is one of those things that, in a cruel way, it is one of those things where it did feel like Owen did what he set out to do in life, and that was make a difference. And one of the things I remember was during the funeral procession that all the people that were there in Canada, they actually just spread out, almost like parting the sea of, like the Red Sea in the Bible, almost as if, like the Secretary of State or the Vice President was coming to see it. And that's how much of an impact Owen had on so many people, whether he met them or he didn't. And, I've never can say that I've had the chance to see Owen wrestle, but it's one of those things where I look at this and I think to myself, there's so many great memories of Owen. And so many people have said, the one thing that Owen always wanted to do was to bring joy to everybody, make people laugh, and he accomplished that. And of course, afterwards, we get into the darker, grittier deals in which Martha sued WWE for a wrongful death, which in all honesty, she deserved to. This was one of those things where, where Fretz said it best. This was a show that did not need to go on. And the way that Martha described it was that, it felt like Owen was a piece of meat that they just cast aside and just said, okay, we're going to continue. I understand that. And I agree. It does feel like they did that. And if you ever listen to the Talk is Jericho deal, she talks very more in depth about, the lawsuits and how Vince McMahon wanted to have the procession in Connecticut because there's no way that this would happen in Connecticut. They even showed a clip of Vince McMahon in this deal where he just says, I don't appreciate the tone that you gave me. It's one of those things where it's like, well, how do you think people are going to react? You literally just decided to continue on, and you're probably one of the few people that decide, hey, let's have Owen Hart do this deal. How are people supposed to react? Are we going to be professional about this? No. Because somebody died. How do you think we're going to react? There's no professionalism. There's none of that happening here. But I will also say that Martha did bring up a really good point during the Talk is Jericho deal, was that she wanted justice brought to Owen. And one of the things that her lawyers mentioned was that during this whole deal, if you guys listen to the Talk is Jericho deal, there's a huge long deal about this. I think that you need to listen to that more than this. Is that how the lawyer pointed out was that, in the end, the only thing you're really gaining out of this is money. There was not going to be any justice given. Nobody's getting arrested. Nobody's going to be serving jail time. All it was just going to be about money. It was kind of, in a weird, surreal way, like the whole thing with Snuka, where it was like Vince McMahon called the mother of the girl that got killed, and it was like, would this amount of money make this better for you? And it was just one of those situations where it was like, it feels kind of in the same way, but Martha, God bless her, she decided to take a negative and create into a huge major positive, and that was and is the Owen Hart Foundation, where it is honestly a very wonderful organization where they are talking about helping people with homes, helping people with school. It's one of those deals where it's something that Owen would be very proud to know that his legacy is going to be left behind on such a huge positive note. And that Owen was always about making a difference. When I was saying earlier about Owen Hart being one of the nicest guys there, he literally had a homeless guy stay in his room when he was leaving early. He said, dude, you know what? I have this room for a couple more hours. Go right on in. Just rest, take a nap. There's leftover pizza there. By all means, just, make yourself at home. Just do me one favor and don't break anything. That shows you the kind of heart that Owen Hart had. And it was one of those things where, again, it's like I really am emotionally invested in Owen Hart. He is one of those guys who definitely left such a huge impact on everybody. Whether he knew you or he didn't know you, he was always that guy that was just always looking to make you feel good. And he still continues to do that. So, you hit the nail on the head where, so many people are saying, like, he's not going to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I said it last night. I said, he's too good to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's the one person that I can name off the top of my head that shouldn't go in the Hall of Fame because he's too good for that. He can go in every other Hall of Fame, professional wrestling-wise. As far as WWE Hall of Fame, fuck that. That is the one thing where I'm just like, you know what? He made his impact on there. That's enough. And there's so many people like, but WWE could do it. No, they won't. They will not. Martha has said the fact that she doesn't want WWE profiting off of somebody that they literally killed. And I understand that. And I get that. And I also hate the fact that, the family in kayfabe seemed divided in the 90s is now divided again here in real life because there were people in the Hart family that do not agree with Martha Hart's way of doing this. They don't want to talk to her. They don't even want to associate with her. And Martha has said that she's accepted that she has, she has forgiven them. She will see, the Hart grandchildren, and she will give, common courtesy. She's being very professional. She's being such an amazing woman, and God bless her. She is absolutely fantastic. And, well, actually, I should say this right now. It's not Martha Hart. It's Dr. Martha Hart, because she is indeed a doctor. She earned that. She deserves that title. And God bless you, Dr. Martha Hart. Thank you so much for keeping Owen's legacy and his name alive in the best way. And so much so that we hear on the Talk is Jericho deal, and it's already been revealed that that we are getting Owen Hart t-shirts, and the proceeds are going to the Owen Hart Foundation. I can tell you right now, I've already purchased my shirt. Fretz already told me that he purchased his shirt. We're supporting this. We are definitely supporting this. So, when it comes to all this legal stuff, there's a lot of people that will say that Martha's in the wrong. I'm one of those people that says Martha's in the right.
Yeah, this whole thing really changed my opinion on Martha Hart. Well, I didn't have much of an opinion of her at first. I just thought that, she doesn't want to keep Owen Hart's memory alive? What the heck? I mean, what kind of... And then after watching this, it's just like, I completely get it. I mean, even when Oj and Athena are just like, no, it's just a piece of silver with his name on it. I mean, no, we don't want this, and that's fine with me. I for years, until last night, literally until, was it last night? I don't know what day it is anymore. Until then, I'm like, please, for the love of God, put Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame. I'm now, no, that's fine. And before I forget, Owen became my favorite wrestler posthumously. Like, it was Brett for years and years and years. Until over time, I started seeing, kayfabe commentaries and shoot interviews and hearing stories about him, and then watching all these matches, and then hearing about how, Owen valued his family. And I'm just an uncle, and I value time with my nephew, my niece, my brother, my sister-in-law, mom and dad. I take that to heart and I value it. Even just before we were recording here, I spent a couple hours on Animal Crossing with my nephew. We had FaceTime going, and then had the game on my screen. We were on each other's islands, and it's like, okay, do this and that, and then it ended up into a giant game of electronic tag, which was hilarious. Yeah. My nephew is a funny kid. He's turning 6 this year, and he's a character. I'm like, yeah, you're definitely a Fretz. Yeah, and Owen's just, yeah. I mean, what better can said? And there's a heart of gold, and the whole dark side. I'd say that was raw, that was real. And I loved hearing some of the stories, like how he used to prank his wife, like with the little rubber mouse in the cupboard. Mental note, I'm going to use that.
Oh my gosh. The thing about it was that Owen Hart was just a genius. You could literally give him like just the minimal wage and he will find a way to make it into like $1 million worth of something. Because, yeah, he used a tea bag to just freak her out. And it's just one of those things where it's like, how have you not strangled this man yet? And I'm sure Martha's like, oh, I've been tempted. It's just one of those things where I've heard so many, husbands, are probably relatively okay with, pranks and stuff like that. But Owen Hart, he was, again, the master at that. And honestly, guys, there's no way that we can end this podcast without telling some more Owen Hart prank stories because they're just absolutely great. It's absolutely awesome. So I definitely do want to talk about this one right off the bat because for those of you that are thinking about, maybe pranking your boss, let's just say this right now. Whatever you come up with ain't got nothing on Owen Hart. Because, all right, so Owen Hart is, backstage during an In Your House deal. It's supposed to be Triple H versus, I believe I think it was Henry Godwin in a hog pen matchup. And the guy comes in, he's got the pigs, he's got this deal. He's like, okay, where do I go to, play at pigs? And Owen just, light bulb, says, hey, follow me, I'll take you in there. The pigs end up in Vince McMahon's office. So, all through the night, Vince McMahon has to go through his office smelling pig shit everywhere he goes. So, like I said, you can prank your boss and probably end up getting fired, but you will never top Owen Hart getting live pigs in Vince McMahon's office. That was just sheer brilliance, and Owen Hart just showing the fact that he can be just quick on his feet as well as quick with his hands when it comes to these pranks.
Yeah, I'm actually just pulling up a list here from What Culture, and the one I have on Michael Cole's first night on the job.
Oh my gosh, I do remember hearing this one.
Yeah, in 1997, seconds before they were going on air to interview the Hart Foundation, Owen Hart decides to pour a bottle of Coca-Cola down his trousers. Just as he was going to get turned to the camera to start the interview, and Cole was probably like squish, like really, really uncomfortable. I'm trying to look for another one on air. Okay, the hot chilies here. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it involves Lex Luger. Not the one that we were just talking about, but it was Owen, Lex, and Davey were traveling together, and they were pulled over as prearranged, pulled over by this cop. And then they like, oh, yeah, it's something that just pulling them over. Why pulled you over? Oh, no, okay. Goes away. Okay, you guys are fine. And the bulldog yells, blow it out your arse. Like, who said that? And it's like, you. Points at Lex, get out. And it's like, they're giving him the handcuffs. She's like, no, it's not me. And Bulldog, knowing Bulldog, is like, it wasn't me. It was Owen. And, I actually have it here. So,
oh my god!
The greatest prank of all time saw Lex Luger again fall victim to the cruel but hilarious team of Owen and Davey. This time, the mischievous pair became friends with two undercover police officers. Okay, there it is. After convincing Lex Luger that the car flashing its lights behind him was Shawn Michaels playing a joke, the American hero sped into the night trying to escape the vehicle, only to put their siren on. Only when they put their sirens on, he finally stopped. The cops were furious, giving them a stern telling off before walking away. And then Davey Boy Smith waits until their backs were turned and yells, blow it out your arse! Officers spun around. and proceeded to ask who would be so stupid to insult them. And Owen's like, it was Lex! And then, as he said, watching with glee as the big blonde wrestler was cuffed and bottled into the back of a police vehicle. Lex even stopped Davey, who was trying to intervene. And the best part of this is that behind this, in a limo, was Vince McMahon watching and laughing his ass off. That's good shit, pal.
Oh, man. All right, so I'll tell the other Lex Luger story, which is really good. So a lot of people know back in the day, Lex Luger, he was pretty jacked up. He was almost going to be like the second coming of Hulk Hogan. So they go through a couple of bits of training, and I think it's supposed to be. I think it's like a tag team match. It's like Lex Luger and someone against Owen and Davey Boy, or it might be even Davey Boy and Luger. I can't remember exactly what.
The allied powers of Lex and Davey versus Owen and Yoko.
Okay, thank you. So as they're doing these practices, Luger decides, I'm going to do like a military press deal. Now, for some people that don't know, when you're taking stuff like that, it takes two to make that move work. When one of them doesn't work with them, it can be pretty complicated. So Owen is literally making himself limp. So Luger is not able to lift up Owen. It's just one of those things where it's like, maybe they're not as strong as he thought he was. So we go into the matchup here. Davey Boy Smith literally just does a press slam to Owen Hart. No struggle whatsoever. And in that point, Luger is just pissed. He just has this look of like, you have got to be kidding me. Oh, but it doesn't end there, ladies and gentlemen. Because Davey Boy decides to go a little bit further and starts yelling out, I'm the strongest! I'm the strongest! To which I'm just like, oh my god. That is literally a middle finger to an American hero, quote unquote, if ever I've seen one.
That was top notch. I think that's better than the cops one. But yeah,
all right.
And just Owen and Davey just together. My goodness,
they were absolutely great. Oh, and did you know that Owen Hart was one of those people that would go into wrestlers' hotel rooms, drop a deuce, and then leave with the heat cranked up?
Yep, he did that to Ahmed Johnson.
Oh gosh, just what the absolute fuck. All right, so I got one more, and this one is kind of funny because it's about one of my good friends, Mr. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. All right, so I'll read the story. On just another night on the road, a group of wrestlers were checking into a hotel in Dayton, Ohio. While the roster was checking into the gym, the front desk clerk received a call from Hacksaw Jim Duggan, asking the clerk where the nearest gym was. The clerk then asked the group if they knew where it was. Owen gleefully took the phone and muttered to Duggan, "Why don't you look for it yourself, you lazy bastard?" Hacksaw obviously got pissed, and Owen responded, "If you got a problem with it, come down and do something about it." And when Duggan said he would, Owen then handed the phone back to the terrified clerk. The clerk pleaded with Owen to tell the truth. But Owen said, said not to worry about it, and say it was Jim and Powers. The clerk presumably told Duggan it was Powers, as Duggan confronted Powers later that night. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, Vincent. I think Owen Hart has you beat on the crank calls. Oh my gosh. And the thing was that one of the reasons why these worked so well is because Owen Hart was just really good at doing impressions of people. He just knew how to sound exactly like him. And that was one of the reasons why it was so easy for him to get his old man, because he sounds just like where he's like, he's like, well, come on, fight me, Stu. You never could fight me back in the day. Just, oh my gosh, Owen Hart, just absolutely amazing. So, like I said, guys, a week ago, I would have taken this as, we're covering a wrestler who definitely has a big impact, going to do this professionally as possible. 1 week later, I'm emotionally invested in Owen Hart. He is one of those guys who just was taken from us far too soon. He passed away at the age of 34, not even reaching the point where his prime was. This was a guy who had so many more years to go and was taken away by an accident, by something that should not have happened. But we can do one of two things. We can either, wallow and just be angry at WWE forever, which in all honesty, there's a part of me that is. Trust me. The little person in the back of my head is just like, fuck WWE, fuck WWE. Or we can continue doing what Owen would want people to do, and that's be kind to others. Show your loving care for them. Show kindness. Be that person that makes a difference in so many people's lives. Because it's amazing what one person can do to an entire nation, especially with one act of random kindness.
You hit the nail on the head right there, man. I had something. Oh, no, wait. Okay. I had another thing. It's not a rib, but we were talking about how Owen was cut off in his prime, and Jericho talked about on the dark side. Like, we had all these guys coming in, like Eddie and Malenko and Benoit, like the Radicals, and Angle, and 5 days before Over the Edge, Owen Hart wrestled and defeated Kurt Angle in a dark match. Just to be a fly on the wall for that, my goodness. And just to do a fantasy booking quickly, I did last year, around this time actually, I did a fantasy booking of what if Owen Hart didn't die, and I had to clear it up with a few people because I thought, is this too morbid? So I actually talked to Ant. Owen Hart is also Ant's favorite wrestler, and I talked to him like, dude, is this cool? I mean, I wasn't part of any wrestling network at the time. I think that was also after he quit too. So I'm just like, dude, I got to ask you this question. And then he's just like, no, man, that's actually kind of cool. So when I fantasy booked Owen Hart, I fantasy booked him running over Steve Austin. And having a match with Angle as well. So,
yeah, guys, we're not going to spoil too much into that because, in all honesty, you definitely should listen to it. We will tag that in the on the Twitter post, so that way people can just watch it, enjoy it. It's absolutely great. And the question is, how do you find us on Twitter? Well, you can follow me on Twitter at RealFNGame. You can follow the Mr. Fretz on the legendary JF. Definitely check out Wrestle Addict Radio at Addict_Wrestle, where you can check out not only more podcasts from us, but also from Kings of the Rings, as well as Young Lions Perspective. I know that as we're recording, I'm just remembering right now that next day we're going to be hearing the Kings of the Rings with those wrestling gals, I should say. Those two are just an absolutely instant classic. Definitely check out that podcast. Check out the Young Lions Perspective, because Zach is just absolutely amazing at podcasting. And hey, we gotta show our love to the one and only Mr. Mance, because he's going to be doing a monthly show, the delightful show. In all honesty, guys, it's awesome. Listen to it. It's great. It's one of those things where, it's great to have one of the, I guess you could say, OGs of the Wrestle Addict Radio back on here. And it's great to have you back. Mance, shout out to you. We love you. Thank you for coming back, man. Jeez Louise. I mean, so many other great things on there. Definitely check out the Owen Hart Foundation. We're not sponsored by them, but we are definitely going to be plugging the ever-living crap out of them because they are a great organization run by Martha, helped out by Oj as well as Athena. Two great, fantastic kids who honestly guarantee that their dad is just smiling at them, at the young people that they have become. Definitely check out Pro Wrestling Tees because for a limited time, guys, we have Owen Hart merchandise and proceeds do go to the Owen Hart Foundation. Definitely don't want to miss out on that. It's just absolutely wonderful. Man. Me and listen to so many podcasts, but at the same time, I gotta say, man, like I said, I don't know if I've ever shed a tear for anybody as much as I have for Owen. This was a guy who I just absolutely have come to respect and love as a wrestler, as a human being. He just made an impact. In all honesty, guys, if we had like a lifetime game changer, Owen Hart is top-notch number one, in all honesty. So I'm trying very hard not to get too emotional because I think I've already spent enough tears on Dark Side of the Ring as well as the Owen Hart Raw's Owen episode. But who knows? Maybe I'll shed a couple more tears tonight before I go to sleep. Who knows at this point? Owen, we love you, we miss you, but we also know that you're up there having dream matches against so many great people. In all honesty, who knows? Maybe Owen and Harley are rekindling that feud from the whole Chili deal. Maybe we're getting Owen versus Eddie, which in all honesty, that would just be beautiful. I look forward to that day. But yeah, I'm spent. I'm emotionally drained after this week. I'm physically drained after today. My God, it was just a crazy day at work. Fretz, any final closing remarks?
No, man. I think I'm spent. You know, this has been a pretty raw episode, but I think it's one that's been a long time coming. Myself being a big fan of Owen Hart, and I think you're a little bit younger, so you know it's nice to see someone a little bit younger come to appreciate, you know, my favorite, and you know he's a favorite of Ant's and just so many of us up here. It's awesome. Plugs, just the usual, you know, 30, 20, 10, and Ruthless Pod got one this week for No Mercy 03. So that's, I'm not done listening to it yet. And I know it is now after the fact, so I can spill the beans on this, but it's something that I personally released. I think it might be my pinned tweet. I'm not sure, folks, but at the Legendary JF, you'll hunt down my podcast, Fretzlemania, Fretzle Mania. On May 19th, I uploaded Hellfire in Tombstone. Thank you for that name, by the way. How Kane Breaks the Streak. And it is a fantasy book script that I basically just jotted down verbatim about Kane breaking the Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. It's something that stemmed from our conversation about the Nexus and the night that them and Kane buried Taker. So I'm like, okay, and then in my mind, the wheels started turning. Like, okay, this is where I'd have Kane beat Taker at Mania, and it was the most fun I've ever had recording something, mostly because I broke out in Paul Bearer voice a lot. And
he really did.
Oh, yeah. And it's corny, it's like really far-fetched, but I'm actually proud of it, and I had fun. So please listen to it and share it with everyone. Maybe don't tag Kane in the post because I don't want to get. I don't want to see him come up my house with like a hook in his hand or something.
Oh boy, that would actually be the worst, because the last thing we need is See No Evil 3, in which he comes in with a paper bag over his head and he has a fisherman's hook. Yeah, no, I feel like WWE would do that. I should just stop. So, hit the music, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so this has been the Game Changer Podcast. Thank you so much for all your love and all your support. And just remember that you can make a difference, because we all know that Owen Hart definitely did. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. be smart, and definitely share your love. And be sure to tell your loved ones that you love them. Give them a nice big old hug.
Nugget.